Peace, greetings. Can you hear me? Greetings, Sister Precious. Greetings, Iris. Greetings, Dr. Arlene. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the room. I'm going to get things started. Greetings, greetings, our new members. Welcome, welcome to the space. So, as folks are piling in, I'm just going to offer a quick sound libation, and then we're going to get right into the affirmation. Okay, welcome to the space. This is the Anu Life Global Ministries Midday Affirmation. I am your, guest host today, Sister Deidre, and today's content is going to be about power and rising above. And I chose that because I wanted to pull from an affirmation, since this is our midday affirmative, a part of the affirmation that we actually recite and listen to each strong on the Sabbath in our private services. Oh, I'm getting a message. There's staticky feedback. Oh no. Let's see. Is that better? I'll wait for a message and I'll keep going and then I'll wait for a message in the chat. Please.
Yes, it's better.
Okay.
It's clear.
Perfect. Okay, greetings, Chief. Thank you for joining, and I'll bring others up on stage. So, as I was saying, I wanted to make sure that, I pulled from part of what we do as an affirmation each Sabbath. And part of that, and that affirmation is as follows: We affirm our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. And I'll say it again. We affirm our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. So, the same way we kind of deliberate and dive into Shema, like anything that is drafted and grafted by Chief Yuya, it has to be dissected, not even just line by line, but word by word. So that's what I tried to do here. So the first part of this is, what is an affirmation? It's the action or process of affirming something or being affirmed. It could even be emotional support or encouragement. That's kind of the idea that people get sometimes when they see, oh, I'm going to affirm this for myself, or I'm going to attend a clubhouse session on affirmations, right? It's also a positive assertion. It's kind of speaking things into existence. And so when we think about the word affirmation, the root word is affirm. And it actually comes from Latin, ad and then firmus. Ad means to, like to add on to, and firm, strong. So the point of this is, that positive affirmation and standing on solid ground. I am going to will this into existence, right? So then after we say, we affirm, the crux of this statement is our divine authority over lower stages of our own faculties. So what is the divine authority? Immediately when we hear the word divine, we know it's from heaven, and the Anu are the people from heaven. It's immediately connected to the Most High. All other definitions of divine, deal with how excellent or delightful a given thing or situation is. As a verb, it refers to intuition or a sort of supernatural insight. As people of the Most High, what's inside it, we come. It's the original piece of that is from the divine. We are pieces of the divine here, having a human experience. And so that's what must be pulled upon to master over this human experience. We come down to Malkuth and we're supposed to rise back up all the way to Kether, right? So when I was, looking for scripture, like how can we find this in scripture? And I actually came across something in the New Testament. So Second Peter 1 and 3. It's actually 1 and 3 through 8, but I'm gonna just do 1 and 3 right now. Second Peter 1 and 3. According to his divine power, hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue. So right now, this is actually Peter, and he's speaking to he's teaching how to deal with like false teachers and evildoers who have come into the church. So this is, people who are um converting, right? So that's what's happening in this dispensation. That's who's talking, that's who's been talking, who's being talked to or spoken to, and that's what's happening in the moment or in that time. And I'll go into the rest of the verses, but before I do the rest of the verses, but before I do that, I did want to kind of move over to faculties. So when we talk about like lower stage faculties, so we already know like lower stage, it's kind of speaks for themselves, for itself, right? Lower stages, it's what's at the bottom. We had a movie breakdown recently and talked about the devil's advocates and the last name Lomax. Like, I think the comment was he he would, kind of, I think he was like at his highest that he was going to go, like he was maxed out at his lower stages. So it's an indication of there needing to be a rise from the bottom to the top. When we think about our chakras, we go from that root chakra all the way up to the crown. Same thing, having that human experience going, we come down to Mount Kuz, which is the bottom, down to earth, and having to rise all the way up to Kether, also the crown. So that's, lower stages. And then when we think about faculties, what are faculties? A faculty refers to any of your mental or physical abilities. So if you lose your faculties, you're in a sense powerless. So what are some of the, I'm going to focus really like on the mental faculties, right? Because where the mind goes, the body follows. So um, the mental faculties here are what is really, really crucial. So mental faculties, there's usually six. There's imagination, there's intuition, there's will, there's reason and or logic, there's perception and memory. So those are our faculties, our mental faculties. And a lot of the times, like they actually do control the physical. Like physical is being able to touch, walk, grab things with your hands, like very basic. So that's why if you don't have any of your faculties, you are kind of dead in the water. You're lifeless, right? So, what would some of those lower stage faculties, especially when we think about mental faculties, what would some of them be? So we kind of touched on this a little bit. If you follow us for Shema on our past, this most recent Shema reading, we touched a little bit on mental faculties and, having to kind of pull them out of atrophy, right? Wiggling the big toe. And, having to be able to, in a sense, come out of Babylon because, like, having to deprogram ourselves. And what happens when we kind of get stuck in that place, and become lifelong wage earners, the faculties, our divine faculties, right? Our divine authority kind of gets diminished because we've started to acquiesce to something that's actually inherently lower than who and what we really are. And so our highest heights of our imagination, highest heights of our intuition, highest heights of our perception, and so on and so on are diminished, and we don't move forward. So when we put this together and we talk about affirming divine authority, right? And I didn't even get into like authority. That authority is that power, right? When we think about power, it's what we have dominion over. So that divine authority over the lower stages of our faculties. So that inherently means like we are saying that we know that we have to rise above in this human experience. We may come and have to kind of come down to earth, come down to the dirt, but we are higher than what you can see physically. And so we have to come above that. We have to go back up to the crown. So I'm going to go forward and read the rest of the scripture. So Second Peter 1 and 3 through 8. So now this is 4 through 8. Whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these ye may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. For if these things be in you and abound, they make you that ye shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge, and that is in the knowledge of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Right? So again, as I said, like this is Peter speaking to the people, telling them to be wary of false prophets, basically, because this we are inherently divine. So we don't need to um be sidetracked, right? I'm going to invite some more folks up into the stage. So give thanks. Um, so I wanted to kind of open the floor to the question, like, for people to share, like, what are some examples of your lower stage faculties that you have had to overcome or trying to overcome? Some of these we've actually seen. This scripture actually gives us like a ladder in a sense, right? Faith to virtue, virtue to knowledge, knowledge to temperance, temperance to patience. It's giving you those stutter steps or those stair steps on how you master and come up over or rise above or use your inherent power to rise above your lower stages of your mental faculties. So I'm going to open up the floor for folks to chime in if they have something to add or to share.
Okay, I'll jump in. Greetings and salutations,
Greetings.
Sister Deidre in Clubhouse Land. Yeah. All right. So as you were speaking, it started making me think of a few things. Um, One of them being the Osirian tale, and having the Osirian myth of having that body cut up into a bunch of different pieces and being put back together again made me think of just when you was talking about the faculties and having today's mathematics being knowledge, and that knowledge being a body of accumulated facts. So now one putting themselves back together again with the information that ultimately has, one deemed to be stolen, taken, lost, whatever the case may be. Um, which even then started making me think of when you talked about affirmations and going back to the beginning of even when Chief had built on that of just talking about the at the beginning of even how to build an affirmation is the thought, right? And organizing one's thought and so that it's not just all over the place. So one would need to organize if there's a building or something, then there's a proper steps that one would take in order to erect a building of such. So now, what is the calculation in order for one to now start to affirm the things that they would like in their life, as opposed to just standing on a hope or a belief, but more so standing on something that is solid, so that therefore you already know what you are speaking into existence, and therefore you are not putting more on your back than it's willing to carry. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Give thanks, give thanks. Um, you know what? One thing I wanted to add as well, like when we think about, like you said, put it not, making sure that we don't put on our back more than we're willing to carry. And sometimes, like, how does that happen, right? Or if you do that, it causes a conflict within self, right? So then that's even having to kind of master over those lower stages, and we'll dig in a little bit to that later, because like this conversation, like some of it was also like touching on like the conflict that it causes, right? When you have to, you know, grasp that authority, or grasp the root of divine power, right? You have to grasp and lord over those lower stages. It can cause some of us to like short out, right? So give thanks for that comment, and I want to dig into that a little later, but I'll open the floor and not like dominate. Welcome, Master Menelek. Welcome, Ima Precious and Dr. Arlene and Naya. The floor is open.
Peace. Oh, I'm so precious on you.
Peace, peace. Good day, everyone. Give thanks for the subject, Koti Deidre. I know you're digging first into what an affirmation is, and then of course we're going to explore the lower faculties, and the lower stages, and I'm just thinking, so much of that climb, our climb or the ascension journey, has to do with recognition or an acknowledgement of where you truly are. So, it's almost like this era of social media, everyone's beautiful. Everyone looks good in everything. Nothing's ever wrong with anyone. And if you point out the obvious speck in your own eye, much less someone else's, it's always like, no, 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 you're beautiful in spite of those things, even when you're pointing it out in yourself. And so it pulls us away from that idea of truly being able to do a sober assessment or to see yourself. So if you can't see yourself, how do you even begin to recognize that you're functioning from those lower faculties, or out of, or through that place? Um, yeah, it was more of a question than anything else, because it's like, if we don't recognize where we are, we may think we're really high up, when in fact we may not be. Yeah.
All right. So I was having some tech issues, so I came in early, and then I couldn't hear anything. So I missed everything you said. But I wanted to add on either way. So I heard a little bit. I heard something about the devil's advocate, and I heard something about affirmations, and then my my stuff went haywire. But um, so I'm just wanted to add on just based on the title, and willfully I don't take you too far, of course. And even if I do, other people do it. I don't say anything, so I'm allowed one time. But so it when I think about power, like we talk about, um, ascending to a certain space. A lot of times, the vision of ascension is based upon one dimension, and the reality is that real power is the ability to transmute energy across dimensions, not just in one place, right? So, for instance, and I'm sure we have all been in this situation where someone has done something, or maybe kind of tried to test us in a certain way, and we have chosen a path of peace when we could probably just rip their head off their shoulders, or curse them out, or whatever thing that we know would most likely cause them more harm than they're trying to cause us. And we decide to use our thoughts to control our physical reactions. That within itself is the essence of power. you know um it's that ability to tap into an unseen in order to control what's seen. So your power is when you're moving from the power of the soul, you're moving from the connection of the soul, and you're ascending through that realm. So the higher or the deeper you go within, the higher you go without, and a lot of times, sometimes, well, I say sometimes people don't realize that, like, you can ascend through one dimension. Like, let's say if you're in a three-dimensional reality and you achieve a lot of success, a lot of fame, or whatever it is, you can do those things without controlling ego. And sometimes we will look at those things and call those things power, or people who have done that, we would say they are powerful people. But if they haven't been able to control all of the things that exist within, that are the cause of what they've achieved without, then they're not controlling the things on the outside either. So, for instance, as a man, if I have not been able to control and understand the relationship of my masculine energy with my feminine energy on an internal perspective, I could have the most amazing wife in the world, but my marriage will go off the rails because I have not controlled and understood and cultivated a relationship with the male and female dynamic internally first, in order for me to properly negotiate it outside of me. So a lot of times, our power is never truly achieved because we're not functioning across dimensional levels. We're not functioning interdimensionality. Excuse me, we're not functioning on an interdimensional level. So, just like love, just like time, just like space, these are all different dimensions. And when you can get them to talk to each other, and you can go from, you kind of like a traveler, go from each one, even my thoughts, my emotion, where my anger exists, my happiness exists, whatever. When I can, let's say if someone does something and it wells, or I choose to allow anger to well up inside of me displaying power in that moment, which will eventually lead to an ascension, is my ability to transmute that anger that I've allowed to well up and push it throughout to another dimension. Now someone may be walking somewhere and see a UFO in the sky in their dimension, or there may be a earthquake in their dimension, or there may be a tidal wave in their dimension. But all it is just me moving energy from this dimension to another. And that is how you begin to really will power. And you could do it on smaller levels, of course, and you could do it on larger levels. But that's how you start to truly ascend, because the beastly minded person who's stuck in one dimension of expression can never really exist or communicate among the gods. They wouldn't have someone so savage among them. So that's my contribution, but just from the title.
Give thanks, and it fits perfectly. And just I only went over our affirmation, like a part of our Sabbat affirmation. We affirm our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. So I think your contribution was spot on. So give thanks. So we have a few other folks on stage.
Hey, greetings. Um, an awesome subject for today. Give thanks for that. As I was listening to Chief, um, as he was talking about moving from plane to plane, as well as the part of our affirmations we do on Sabbat, it's awesome because without that partnership, without coming to acknowledge that the divine plane, where, for myself, I know I didn't operate in that. It was just whatever I thought, felt, or I was conditioned to. But when I think about partnering with that power, some might call it a higher power, or, I choose to think of it as you use the divine power to think. It causes you to think on a different level outside of yourself, or that it does for me. When I think about the way I might want to react to someone being, disrespectful or doing something I don't like, um, it wasn't until I look at that divine power and that reaction that I should have instead of the one that I actually have, which does move you up the ladder, because now you're not thinking on ego, you're not thinking on self, but you're thinking of what's right according to the Most High. How would He have me to 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 deal with this situation? So it takes me outside of myself, and as you said, it does take us above where we actually are, and it's like moving from level to level, from glory to glory. And it's kind of like an out of body experience sometimes when you're sitting back watching yourself um, choose to take the high road, more or less. So I just wanted to share that.
Give thanks.
Please, just to build on that, Softa Arlene, yeah, what you seem to be, what you were describing as initially reacting to becomes what you choose to respond to. And in a response, even, you can choose to not respond, right? So I like, as I was listening to you, I'm like, yeah, react. When you think of react, I think of like popping off. So yeah, how, and like Chief said, however that may look for a person, that is in a direct response to some other stimuli, versus taking the time to choose whether or not to even respond, and if so, with what medicine, if any. Um, that's a whole nother level. And it also made me think of what Akizat contributed already regarding going from knowledge to wisdom. So that what you described is that shift into wisdom, that application. So yeah, good thing.
Give thanks. And you know what? It's also like when you said like reaction and like popping off, like immediately I thought emotional maturity. And when we think about how we have to go through those stages to reach a level of maturity where one can be identified as emotionally mature, that's the same as like those lower stages when if you're not in a place where you know, okay, now's the time to say something, or maybe not, maybe it's not say something, and you are controlling, you are, as she said, tapping into that ability to control, like that unseen to the scene, like because you're not, nobody sees what's happening in the mind until you kind of um, make that move or that reaction. And if there is that level of emotional maturity, you've been able to pull on that divine authority to master over those impulses that make you want to pop off, right? And, that is pulling on the divine authority, mastering over that, and evolving to the next level. It's moving from, as Aki said, that knowledge to wisdom, being wise. And wise is like, wise words. Wisdom is also actions, right? And what we do. I think. I think Naya, I saw your mic unmute, Naya, so I'll mute out so you can share.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Peace, everybody. Y'all really just summarized everything I was thinking. As you were sharing, like the
Come on
mathematics
with the
and the numbers,
BS, Naya.
going through all of the
She
different
knows
numbers.
exactly what y'all know. That's what she just said.
Right.
I know.
No,
I
I'm
know.
not saying
I'm like, don't do it, Imanaya. Don't.
that.
That was like the formula for everybody to unmute.
It just looks like that. That's just what I'm seeing, having those proper thought connections. Because I just thought, like before that explanation Chief gave, I thought when you choose to not respond or choose to take the high road and be the bigger person, it's like, why must you always be that way, I guess, instead of reacting. But Ema Precious, I think you just said it's emotion, or Sister Deirdre said it's emotional maturity. I've never added all these things up to view it that way. So I did I the moments that I have that I'm in those positions where I do, I guess, is to tap into the other dimension, to choose to not respond, because I know my words can do more damage than the other person's trying to do to me. And I'm just like, be quiet, don't say nothing. Like, I don't like when I have to be that way, because I do want to be emotionally immature or pop off or just react. Um, but using thought to control physical reaction is what I end up doing sometimes. Um, yeah, ascending through that realm. So I'm understanding it better. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's all I got.
So I'm gonna say, right? Sometimes in those moments where it's like, well, I'm not going to say anything, that can be a level, depending on how that is conveyed and how that moves and how that's seen in the external, right? That can be seen as also emotional immaturity because there's a level of communication that must take place um, in order to convey how you're going to move, right? And what's happening in that moment. So I just want to be clear that it's not always, and I'm guilty of this as well. It's not always, well, I'm not going to say anything because by not saying something, sometimes that's speaking volumes, especially in how you choose to not say something. So we do have to keep in mind that proper and appropriate and mature communication still needs to be in a particular situation. So I just wanted to add that and say, yeah, we have to keep that part in mind. Go.
Please, everyone. You know what, Sister Deidre, you said exactly what I was just thinking. But
Oh, come
I'm
on,
gonna go.
man.
Here we go.
Oh
Too
my.
much in the nutshell.
Oh my.
But yeah, what I was thinking, honestly, I think Brother Zach had sparked it when he brought up today's math with knowledge. And I was thinking, what's your point of reference? You know, when you think about rising above, like what's rising above what? Or even your reaction, what is reacting to what? Or like Chief was saying, you're using your higher faculties to govern your lower faculties. And it's like, what kind of point of reference are you using when you're moving from day to day? You know, and one of the things that I had realized, like a lot of us were speaking about, you know, coexistence, coexisting with others, as well as like Chief was mentioning, coexisting with what's going on inside of you. And if you're not moving from that place of power or the point of reference, like you're dealing with the divine power, like Dr. Arlene had said. If you're not coming from that point of reference of divine power, it's very easy to slip back into those lower faculties. And you think you're being mature. You may think you're being, you may think you're even being strategic and tactful, but you may be coming from your ego, but it might be like that Lomax scenario, like you're using the higher parts of your lower faculties. And you think, well, I'm moving in a good way than so and so, so of power, or I must be more powerful than they are, not realizing that power can express itself in a multitude of ways. And it's like, are you the expression of the power, or are you connecting with the source of the power? That's what I was, that's what the topic today had sparked.
Yeah, uh,
Oh, go ahead. You got it, brother.
that just made me even think of like there's a saying that goes, the truth doesn't need defending. And when one starts slipping back into their lower faculties, it's like, really, are you really standing on truth then? Are you really examining what it is, who and what you are that you're saying, that you say that you're about? So now that when somebody says something, is it now triggering? Or you feel like you just have to have a gut and emotional reaction to let them know that I'm still in power here? Or this is like, you know what? I understand where this person is at. And yeah, now you start to read, how much energy do I want to give this individual? Do I want to go down a road where now I feel like maybe I'm giving them power by even speaking to them? Or do I just pull back and say, you know what? I just let them go. Um, but I think it comes in the sense of now using those whole segments he did, tacit silence, right? It's just, you look, somebody, I might, just going off these pictures, it's like somebody saying something that you already know. So I'll say, Emma Precious, you don't wear glasses, right? Or you look like, some things just don't need a response. You're telling me something that I already know. Now, if you're telling me something that I haven't quite figured out, or maybe it's something that is in me that is still I'm struggling with, now all of a sudden I'm gonna have that gut or triggered reaction where I feel like, duh. But the person who knows, or the person who they're quiet. It's a peaceful quietness that comes over, and it's like, man, I don't need to prove anything here. I already know what I know. Um, you don't have to go and say, I'm the best this and I'm the king of this and you're probably not that if you have to. What's understood doesn't need to be explained. And that's when I would say one starts to exude that power when you can be like, nah, there's something to this one right here. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
All right. So I'm gonna say Master Menelik triggered, like, said something that triggered a thought, and so I'm realizing that when we are, and maybe I should have known this already, all right, but when we are responding or calculating, using knowledge and wisdom to come to an understanding as to whether or how we should respond to something, it's almost like alchemy. Like, it's like we're taking what somebody else may intend for us to react to, usually negatively, right? And then we're using it for food to fuel the harnessing of power. So like, I'm laying here and I'm like, oh my goodness, how amazing is it to really just, even what you said, Aki Zach, like that, there's a lot of power in just being quiet in those moments. Um, and you're not necessarily deflecting what's being said, but of course you are deflecting it, but you're using it to build something else in yourself and to reflect something else out to the world. So I think this is pretty cool. And I didn't know it before. I wasn't thinking it before.
Good, thanks, Ema Precious. So, um, we do have someone else that just joined us on stage, but I think Chief had unmuted and wanted to say
No, I was
something.
gonna let Aki Hamza go.
Okay, floor is yours, Aki Hamza L.
Greetings, can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes, you can be heard.
All right. I'm sorry about the noise in the background as well. I'm in travel mode. My bill, my add to the bill was when I was thinking about affirmation, I was thinking about affirmative action, right? Because it's like um, when you think about affirmative action is basically the allocation of resources for employment, right? And the practice or policy of individuals, based on a group perspective. And so it's like, are we affirming the things that are helping the group, or like, are we contributing through our affirmations something that is positive at the same time? Because a lot of times, like, we're affirming things for ourselves, and how many times, as you stated, earlier, Achati Deidre, like, the bill was built on the affirmations or the envisionment of I knew. So then it's like, how many times do we sit back and affirm things for our individuality, and how many times we're looking at, okay, what are we affirming for the group? What are we affirming for the community? And so it's like, okay, because it's like a lot of times when we speak about affirmations, it's like, I'm affirming this for it's like self-centered, because we're trying to get to a place, or we're trying to get to a status, or we're trying to actually become something for ourselves individually, and we're not thinking about the collective. It's even when you're looking at our new way, and or you listen to the music that is distributed by Chief Uyah, and he's saying, like, yo, the vision of a million families. Like, his affirmation is not being put out for his self, you know, uh, like for self grandeur, or like self promotion. It's like, no, we're doing these affirmations because, like, we're affirming these things for a community that we're developing in a bigger group. So the affirmations are not coming from a place of self-development, but coming from a place of a development of community and like development of harmony. And that's all I want to add to the bill. Traffic is, I think, is about to take over the noise. So yeah, I give thanks for the bill too, Sister Deidre, because it's like really eye opening.
Word.
Thank
Yeah, so that, what Aki just kind of touched upon was sort of some similar to what I was thinking earlier. Sometimes we find ourselves having to develop all these different tools in regards in regard to, how to respond, or how not to react, or not how not to um give an expression or a consequence of wrath based on what's said to us, or what we find ourselves around. But oftentimes that's because it's a reflection of a person who's not living their purpose. you know um when we talk about using the divine aspects of our own nature to control the lower faculties of our nature, what we're speaking about is separating, the blessed from the cursed. There's certain parts of us coming into this existence as humans, being confined in this experience, that are automatically wrong. We're born with certain things that are automatically off, and that's just the nature of humanity. And then there's a spirit inside of us that is striving for perfection. And when we are controlling one with the other, or the higher with the lower, what we're doing is like, I've spoke about this before, it's like having a sermon on the mount. Those who are the audience in the sermon are your lower nature, or your lower order thoughts that have not been organized into ideas. And then the higher divine is the organized idea, or the organized concept. So a lot of times, if you find yourself having to develop all of these different count to 10 and breathe 3 times and all this stuff methods to deal with ignorance, is because you're unfocused and you're not living your purpose. Because I am not going to, me personally, I am not going to entangle and consort with people who are not focused like I am, because then I run the risk of being like them and changing my standard based on their standard. Maybe I stay up all night getting something done, and they're like, "Oh man, you need to get some sleep, man. You got to get some rest. Go on and lie down, man, and that'll be there tomorrow. It'll be waiting for you. Don't even worry about it." You know, and you start hearing that stuff enough, and you start saying, "Well, yeah, there is some truth to that, man. Like, why am I killing myself? I'm the only one doing this. It only means something for me, to me. I can take a break, or whatever it is. You have so many different standards of lower order behavior that you could take on. But a lot of times you'll take that on because you are consorting with people who are lower order, or you're consorting and enraptured in lower order thoughts. You're amongst the congregation when you should be up on the pulpit. you know and sometimes our fear causes us not to want to stay on the pulpit, where we say things like, "I'm afraid I'm gonna go off on the deep end if I get into this too much. I'm gonna go, how far will I go? Or I'll go too far." Right. But ultimately what I'm saying here is that, and excuse me for the jarbled word, I think we all got the Ramadan dry mouth, so we all talking weird. But that's what that. I think your tongue be like, "And then, what?
yes.
That's the Ramadan speech. It's almost over. We'll be talking eloquent again in just a little while. But so yeah, just based upon that, I would say, like, this conversation is, to me, to on some level, a one-off. Even though we affirm it and we speak about it, but the next level of the conversation is kind of like what Aki just said. Like, what are we affirming for the group? But are we identifying the group? Because I can say, like, I don't have a lot of instances of somebody saying something or doing something, and I got to decide if I'm gonna flip on them, or, well, I don't really have that, because I don't consort with that sort of thing. And the times that I have had it, even up until recently, I can, like, pinpoint exactly what I did to put myself in that situation, or exactly how I lowered my standard to let someone in the gate who had no business being in the gate. So if we were as vigilant about our purpose and the type of ingredients and garden that needs, just like how Adoma was placed in the Garden of Eden, and Adoma represents that civilized, perfected thought. If we have a perfected purpose here, this is what I'm here to do, and this is the laser focus that I need to have. Where would I place myself? Because remember, the Garden of Eden and all of the different fruits represented different thoughts. So, what garden would I place myself into so as to not lose the momentum of my purpose? But if I'm in a garden where is all these snakes, I'm constantly getting interrupted, and I got to figure out all these different techniques to deal with the snake, then I have to question myself: how seriously do I really take my purpose and my focus? So that's my add on that.
Yeah, good, thanks. Immediately when you were talking about like the sermon, like the audience being the lower thoughts, I'm like, well, it's the as I minister to you, I minister to myself, and trying to make sure that I move away from, or we move away from those lower order thoughts, or the lower nature. And then to Aki Hamza, his ad in his build and his edition. I agree. You're exactly right. Like, yes, at what point do we start to affirm for the group? And I did think of like the idea of unity and harmony, right? And I think the affirmations, they have to be true for the individual, and being harmonious, and knowing like what your role is, and knowing that you're, picking the right fruit, or you're in the right garden, so that you can form that unity, and you can make sure that that affirmation then spreads to the group. Kind of like the analogy of like the beehive. Everybody kind of has like what they're doing, but it's feeding the larger purpose of the community.
I would say to that too. There comes a time, and I'm just going to add on because this is really something that I'm not saying based on me seeing Aki Hamza. There are people who come along at times where they remind you of certain things, right? And there's been several times he's reminded me of certain things, because sometimes, again, you lose your standard or you allow it to compromise over time. But sometimes it's a thought that goes in my own head as a community organizer, and it's, when am I going to kick these bums out? You know, there are some people who are present for the mission and they're on task and they're down for the cause, and there's some who will clown their whole way through because they take you as a joke. And sometimes we don't call them out because we're afraid of the reaction, or we don't feel like being bothered, or we know they're just going to lie about whatever they say. There's nothing authentic or genuine that comes out of their mouth. It's just going to be a bunch of weak excuses or whatever. But at what point do you say, it's time for you to go? Because you are dangerous. When you talk about collectively affirming for the group, you are dangerous to the group because you are a bum. You're a bum, and you're full of excuses. You're weak. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You have no business being here. Just like you would hear in other organizations, when you don't make the cut, you got to go. And you don't belong here. That's why you're full of excuses. You see? So I think also a part of your ascension is being able to make that decision internally. There's some things, because a lot of times when you have those kind of people around you, they are reflective of something that you have within you that you are still afraid to let go of. But being able to say that, like, yeah, it's time for you to go, hit the road. You bring nothing to this experience other than danger. Or like in Roots, a fearful person is a dangerous person. They're dangerous to their village. Well, they're weak. They're bums. So I think that that's an important part of that affirmation that everyone should pay attention to. And I'm just saying, as a coordinator of a movement who's been a coordinator of this movement for a very long time, and like I often say, more people have left than have stayed, or been kicked out, then it stayed. And I knew that from the beginning it was going to be like that. I was perfectly fine with that, but I knew from the beginning, like, yeah, it's not that this isn't for everybody. It's just that we live around a lot of weakness. Like I say, it's hard to stay sucker free in a world full of lollipops. So we live around a lot of bums. There's a lot of weakness out here in the society, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. So, when you establish any sort of standard, people start to flake. Something as simple as you applied for Anu, you get an email that says this is the day that your appointment is for your interview. And the day of the appointment comes, now all of a sudden you don't know how to work your phone. You don't know how to work an app on your phone. Oh, I thought you were gonna call me. Am I supposed to call you? But you weren't. You're not organized enough mentally or mature enough to maybe send that message ahead of time. Okay, will you be calling me? How will we be speaking? Is there anything I should do in preparation for? Yada yada yada. We could just go right through the list. And there comes a time when, for the community's sake, you might look down at your children and say, you know what? I can't have that person around my child, because anyone who's around my child has the potential and the right to emulate that person. So I only want high minded and high idea people around those who I consider to be precious to me and sacred to me, you know? So that's something that's just kind of ringing in my ears as we're speaking about ascension and separating and looking at the higher from the lower. A large part of that has to do with getting the bums from away from you, and making those, for some it may be hard decisions, for some it would be really easy because they celebrate, like when certain people are not in our new, I'm happy, because 9 times out of 10 the person who may decide I can't take it anymore, that's a person who I was unsure about the entire time. I didn't trust them the entire time. And there's nothing like having thoughts in your head, because remember, everybody's around you represents a thought. There's nothing like having a thought in your brain that you can't trust. If this were to happen, what would I really do? I don't know. That's a scary reality. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Um, and it takes me back just to like what a firm is, like we standing strong. And so if that strength needs to be like making, like putting the foot down, this is what I'm not going to tolerate, or this is what I'm, have to move for the safety and security of myself, my family, my community, then that's what it has to be. And yeah, like in the corporate world, you are the weakest link, and nobody blinks twice. To when it comes to getting rid of weakest links. And you also mentioned, like, do I want to have my children around that? And I can't remember if it was a clubhouse conversation or Shima or something else, but talking about how when children will tend to date or marry who's in their cipher, so you have to make sure that they are in higher level ciphers and places where it's an evolution, so that they don't kind of sink to the lowest common denominator. So yeah, give thanks for that, Chief.
You know what's real dope about all of this though? Every time I say something in a cipher, y'all always say somebody said it, but I don't know who said it. But when y'all say something, somehow y'all always remember exactly who said it. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't remember who
I'm
said
just saying though, because y'all be quoting a lot of my sound bites. You know what I'm saying?
it.
Y'all be quoting a lot of my zingers and be like, I don't know who said it. I don't know if y'all got together and decided like he's already the chief, so we ain't gonna give him no more credit on top of that because he's already the boss. But I'm just saying, I want you to know that I noticed it in case you didn't think I noticed it.
Okay, so y'all, Chief said that. I wasn't sure, but you know what? I did say, Chief wrote this entire affirmation. So what we this small sliver of what we are building on is Chief is the author of that.
Nah, man,
So
I ain't talking about don't. Y'all be quoting my slang. Y'all be biting my lyrics. You know what I'm saying? And y'all don't give me credit on the album. You know what I'm saying? And for the record, I'm the one who said it's got to be in you and not on you. You can't wear this like a t-shirt. Precious always credit Zach for saying that. You know what I'm saying? I listen. I got a whole list of infractions that I've wrote up. You know what I mean? on all of y'all, but y'all gonna stop biting my lyrics.
Oh, that's because Zach doesn't give you credit.
Nah,
So
Zach always
I
gives me
gotta point
credit.
the
He
finger.
he the
I gotta point.
Now he the one person that would say,
Oh
"Yeah, I got this from Cheat." But you didn't go back and listen to the old sentence. You the one
man. Oh my
that didn't
God.
listen to the old segments. A lot of this slang y'all talking is recycled from like 2016, 2000. These are my old moves. Y'all can keep these moves. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
But I'm just saying, just
tell him why you mad. Tell him why you mad
Well,
because you ain't
yeah,
say
right.
like
it.
don't be
You
acting
sound like
like
the
some
mad
ghost.
rapper.
Yeah, like it's a ghost rider. Oh, we don't know who said this, but somebody, you know, I said it.
Well, what I pulled on was from like a few strongs ago. That was new stuff. It was new stuff.
Look, y'all can keep these moves. I'm saying
Violent.
I ain't
Chief
even
said
trying
it.
to keep. I got new moves, but I'm just saying, give me my credit. My credit is due.
Okay.
Acknowledge that when I say, because I will, it's hard to be sucker free around all these lollipops. I will say, Chief, y'all said, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that. I'll be quoting you. Give thanks.
Yes, yes. So now we know. Should make sure that you put the attributions on all the photos. Any quotes, they should be properly attributed.
Yeah, that's right. Put some respect on it. Just don't be calling me no ghost. Either say my name or don't say nothing, but don't be saying somebody.
We
I
put
got
some
a name.
And I ain't gonna say it no more.
good things, good things. So yes. Does anybody else want to build on that? Imanaya, you pretty quiet.
I'm okay. I'm just listening, chilling, taking some notes like I always do.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
what notes did you speak on the note you just wrote? Yeah, thank you.
The last one, some of the last ones, is just get the bums away from me and get away from the bums.
I don't hear no paper crumpling.
Because I stopped with the paper and I'm trying to be electronic. I'm typing.
I don't hear no stylus tapping. I don't hear no
Come
computer
on
clicking.
now.
That ain't no computer.
Okay. So Imanaya is taking it. But you didn't share like what you oh, you said get away from the bums. Well, willfully that wasn't all. There was a whole like piece of that. Yes, get away from the bums, but there's an evolution to that. Good things.
Yeah, the evolution is you got to identify the internal bum first, because
Mhm.
the bum, you know, everything is cellular. Everything is
Mhm.
built on the science of the cell. Once you understand the science of the cell and how you have all this space around the nucleus and all this activity, but it's mainly empty space. Even the nucleus itself is so tiny, but there's not much in it. But everything that attaches to a cell is going to attach to that cell's receptor. So there has to be a shape to receive whatever it is that it's going to receive. It's like, it's like a hook. So you
Mhm.
can't bring something into your cipher if you don't have something within the shape of your orbit to connect to that thing that you're going to bring in. So you might say, but this person keeps showing up and they're bummed, they're not really serious, they're not really doing what they're supposed to do. But there's something in you that has established a landing pad for that bum. You see, it's just like you look at the there's 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 um there's pyramids in the Sudan, right? There's way more pyramids in the Sudan than there are in Kemet, you know. But we never talk about the Sudanese pyramids too much, but there's a bunch of them, and a lot of them are not as large, but there were early invaders who came in there and blew the tops off the pyramids. Blew the pointed, really the macabre off the pyramid. And they have all these different theories why they blew the tops off the pyramids. They were upset or this or that, or but the reality is, like, it's not hard to figure out if you read old books, like really old books, like books made out of stone, that these pyramids were landing pads. So if I blow the top off the pyramid, then those ancestors of these Nihilistic people who live here can't come back and land where they landed before. Period. Right? So I blow the tops off. So I'm basically destroying the landing strip, if you will, right? So in order for there to be that connection of a particular thing, there has to be a landing strip somewhere within your psyche in order for that thing to be present. So it's not just I'm gonna cut the bum off. It's what am I operating from and what am I cultivating and maintaining inside of me that's maintaining a space for my bum to come and go as it wants and for other bums to come and go as they want. That's a part of the control that you have to have over your kingdom or your queendom, because your kingdom and your queendom exists within your own psyche. It exists within your own thinking. You know, so sometimes we have, we may be complaining about we're meeting people who are seedy and shady and all these different things, but inside of our kingdom or queendom, we have an underbelly, we have a red light district, and it's just like, well, why is that still in your mind? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? There's certain activities we still like to engage in or we think that are cute, and we still have friends who are into certain things, and we keep attracting low lives and not realizing because we've established a landing pad for those low lives inside of our psyche. And in the same instance, once you understand the proper shaped receptors for the good things in the universe and the glorious things in the universe, then you start to ascend and reintegrate your shape to receive those things. You see, you start to transform your mind so your mind can become receptive to that level of ascension and that level of
Mm-hmm.
integration with higher powers and divine weaponry, you know.
Yeah. Give thanks. You know what? Immediately, like the visualization that I got was like the visual that we've all been seeing like for the last 2 years is like virus. Like when they talk about how virus is attached to receptors, like cell receptors. And I'm thinking like, well, it's exactly what you said. Like what's in you that allows them to hook? There's something that they when a virus attaches to a cell, it's because it recognizes something to attach to. So that's that landing strip that you're talking about. So it means like you have to like cauterize or vaccinate yourself against the crazy, against the lower stages, and acknowledge like what's in there, what has to be burned out. We talk about this all the time, like the things that have to be burned out in order for it to not come back. Like that's that cauterization. Um, um, it also made me think of like connection, like when we talk about love being a connection, from the internal to the external. And it means that like if there's these low and base things that we're still moving in and doing because we like it, whether secretly or outwardly, it's because that connection is still there. So like it's possible to love like these low things, and then you have to understand, but that love for those low base and low natured things keeps the low natured and low base things in your orbit and in your cipher. So there has to be that, nope, I'm done. The cutoff, the cutoff has to happen. Yeah.
Chief said something that really, I like to say I was thinking it before he said it, but not exactly,
Give the credit.
because it
Give
hit
the
home.
credit.
Yes, I have to give him credit as always. But I was thinking when I came into a new as an individual, I was coming into a community, and everything I read and I knew about a new, it was like, yes, yes. But it wasn't until I came in that I realized I had to deal with, well, I was told, you have to deal with you first. Because before you can bring anything to the community, I thought about the word he used was I forget what you call them, the person that you come in. Well, for myself, it was the bum, the bum in me, and realizing that the bum is going to be exposed, and there was no place to hide, even though you were amongst others in a community. Before you can be um, an asset in the community, you have to deal with self, that individual person, that lower, the facilities that you got so used to operating in before you realize there was a higher divine power that partnered with you to make you a better person or to help you get to where you needed to be. So, and not and understanding that I couldn't even be an asset to the community until I understood the power and was willing to rise above, the way I came in, um, which was a lot. So it just helps me even to this day look at the bum in me to see what else has to be expelled. And it made me think about that it talks in Anu about you can't ascend if you're heavily burdened by, the things that you're surrounded with in this world. Your heart has to be light as a feather. And that's a quote from Chief Yu Ya's New Way. Um, but just all those things as they begin to really take hold and marinate within you and become a part of you, you know, and for myself, that's when I can begin to see it's not just on me, you know. Now these are things that are triggering thoughts daily. So, just being aware that there's still a bum that exists here that still has to be dealt with in order for me to bring my best into the community.
Well, let me say this. When you were speaking, it just started to marinate on me, and that's a quote from South. I'm joking. I'm joking. Uh, there was something though that I was listening to this guy. We'll call him Cyclops, uh, and he had said something like, you judge a spirit by the spirit, and that's one of the things that starts to hit home, right? Where it's like, hold on, man, am I not able to see these things because these things are alive and active inside of me? But I can't possibly be the problem. I can't possibly be, or you don't understand. Or I would hear some of the old segments on enlightenment transformation when they'd be like, well, let me just give you some more of the story. And she'd be like, don't need it. Don't need it. Right? Because it can't possibly be somebody that's beyond, that can see. It can't possibly be anything outside of you, but it starts to take a look at it, even when he was speaking earlier, of just going deeper within of these layers that one has built up to say, you know what, let me fix these things and eradicate these things so that therefore now I can start to now move in a stronger group of people. But then it's hard because it's like when you hear people say lead by example. Well, now if I want to be around certain people, I'm gonna have to start doing like these certain people, and I don't want now. I'm gonna have to hold myself accountable. It might be better if I just pull and lay in the background and not really say anything, because then I don't have to hold myself accountable. I don't have to hold, I'm able to sleep at night. I don't have to have any anxiety or anything of that nature where I feel like I'm living a double life. Or some people just don't care and they just start jumping up and I'm gonna say whatever because now I know most of everybody else is not going to read, they're not going to study, they're not going to do anything, so they're not going to be able to see right through all of the BS. Um, so I think it just becomes it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes when one has to now look at themselves and saying, what do I need to extract out of myself in order to raise myself up out of this BS?
Yeah, give thanks. South Darling, you said it. Like, what's the bum in myself? And being honest about that bum and what she likes and what I have to separate from, and how to kick her out of my house, right? Um, some of that is, you know, not being emotionally mature. Like the bum is just like not emotionally mature. The bum sulks. She just like doesn't want to like hear when she did something wrong. And it's kind of like you said, Aki Zach. It's like, well, and I won't say nothing because then I don't have to be accountable. So like she has to go because if she's not kicked out, if that landing pad is not destroyed, if those receptors on those cells are not like cauterized, then I run the risk of becoming the queen of the garbage heap, right? That's that low max. Like I'm just gonna master over these lower stages. And if I don't want to be there, and I'm saying I don't want to be there, and I am, part of the people from heaven, then there has to be like actual action, and activity to move out of that space. And so, like, part of it is like giving more, saying more, doing more studying, and showing that I'm doing that, right? So, yeah, give thanks for that share, Dr. Arlene and Akizak.
Yeah, that example that Chief had brought up also reminded me of the final scene in that movie in Devil's Advocate. And you would swear that Milton is gone for good. There's all of this music and fireworks, and you see them all defeated, and then you see Kevin go back to the bathroom, and he's talking to the reporter, and he decides to do the right thing in the moment. And he's like, all right, so I made the right call. So everything should be gravy now. And he lets his guard down, like immediately. Like, and then as they're leaving, the reporter comes behind him. And then that very same landing strip, or the very same pitfall that he had before that got him, like he falls for it again. The same vanity, you know. And like that's like a good visual example. Another visual example. Excuse me, it's the Ramadan prime up, you know. Another visual example of you you think that you're ascending, but you only got rid of one bum. You didn't get rid of the help wanted sign that was on the window. You didn't move and it's like, all right, this position is closed like permanently. You don't need any more of this anymore. So when you're moving forward and you're moving up, there is another aspect of it too, like Brother Zach was saying, you get to another level and or you have the potential to move to another level and you start to see what's required of you and then you start to back away and go to what's comfortable. I don't think I want to ascend as quickly as I thought I did. I still want to ascend, but I don't want to go as fast. Let me just ease up a little bit. And that easing up is like the bum saying, like I'm holding on with my last two fingernails. Slow down so I could get back in the car. Slow down just a little bit so I could climb back in the car. And then I could tell you where you need to be going because you obviously tripping. I almost died. The bombs are supposed to go if you're rising, but the resistance that you give to yourself while you're going up is sort of what can come back to bite you. And those things can be your strongest points. Like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, a certain trait may be your strongest point, because it's the strongest in the room full of those thoughts. And then as you continue to ascend, if that thought doesn't continue to evolve, it's now the weakest link. But you're so attached to the history of it being the strongest. You're like, well, that's so and so, they can ride. They've been here, they've been along for the ride. They've been there for how many years? How are we gonna let them go? But they become poisonous because they at a certain point they refuse to grow. And you gotta be able to make that discernment and look at them like with respect. Look again, you know, like this is from Chief, just to make sure because we do that. We do say things and not realize that we've been in this experience for a long time. A lot of our vernacular has changed um, based on these new interchanges. Chief has given us a lot of game, and sometimes we do forget. Like Chief had always said, big, we're not a people of memory.
Yep. Like, as you were talking, that makes me think, like, so I said earlier, like, we'll dive into that part, about like, if the landing strip isn't totally um, destroyed, or if we still have those thoughts because, like, it didn't evolve with everything else. And that's where, like, that conflict comes in. That's then we have that eternal conflict or that war within ourselves. And Chief, this came from Chief. He did say this was, I think, during, this might have even been during a Sabbat call, like what is war? And war is like the conflict of ego, right? And we already know, like, the ego lives in offense and wants to stay like in that comfortable dark place. Like, so it's like, well, no, why are you getting rid of me now? Like, this has helped us. And just, or to be like, just give me a little more time, or it could be from the outside. We heard this dawning earlier with Achoti Shamanique, when she replayed some of the podcasts, like from the Pursuit of Happiness. Many times when something like amoral is missed, this is from Chief. Anytime when something amoral is witnessed, like the response could be
Come
like,
on
whatever
now.
makes you happy. What? I
Yeah,
said it.
but
I
you ain't
said
gotta
it.
say it every time. I'm just saying,
Okay.
just don't say I don't know who said it when you know who said it.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Gotcha. Copy. So yeah, it's like, whatever makes you happy. And statements and comments like that is what helps, like, the ego and that lower stage win out, and you stay there. You get stuck there. And then eventually, yeah, the war is won by those lower stages, and then you go nowhere. And then you are king or queen of the garbage heap. You are King Lomax or Queen Lomax, whatever.
I think it's also important for people to realize, in order to be restored to your proper place, there has to be a singleness of the eye. There has to be a, like I said, that single focus, that laser focus. Because if you recognize that there's an interrupter, or there's an accuser, or there's someone who's just dead weight, who's hanging on to you, it, it's hard to imagine, first of all, ascending, because now I got to carry both of us, and maybe my wings were only built to carry one person. We got to start there. But then the other aspect of it is that your role, my role, everybody's role here is to sit on our own thrones. The throne is a very critical object, and even fetish, if you will, in spirituality, whether it be indigenous spirituality, even in music. You hear Jay-Z talk about the throne, you know, and those statements are not accidental. They know what they're saying when they say the throne. The throne itself is the seat of power, right? As you can imagine, the throne is a seat, but it represents the nucleus. Remember, I was talking about the cell before. So it's through the nucleus of that throne that all of your spiritual power becomes omnipresent. Just like a king or a queen on their throne, when they send out a commandment or a directive, it goes out throughout the kingdom, because they're sitting on their throne. So the proclamation is heard from the throne to the royal court, down those steps, and all throughout, where their dominion, or where their domain is. So your job is to make it to your throne. And you cannot make it to your throne if you are double-minded. Like, the scriptures say, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So you don't even have the stability to walk up the altar to the throne, to that throne seat where your actual power extends from. You see, so one of the critical things about that, it's to understand that it's not optional to say, well, maybe I'll get this together, maybe I'll get some of these bad habits off me, maybe I'll get some of these poop butt people away from me who really don't have any drive or any desire in life. They just kind of loafing through whatever. It's not really optional, because as long as you keep them in your cipher, you'll never get to your throne. And if you never get to your throne, then you'll never have the ability to transmute energy into the world. The world is a place that the creator has given us in order to exhibit our greatest gift. And the greatest gift that we have is the highest power in all of the universe, and that's the power of thought. Thought is way more powerful than people realize, because thought is the same exact substance that the creator uses to do what it does, to create universes. And we've been gifted with the blessing of thought. So when you're around people who are not seeking to control thought, which means controlling addictions, controlling weakness, controlling cowardness. Like it was said before, even controlling the passive aggressiveness, where sometimes we fall into, well, I ain't gonna say anything, or I'll just be quiet, or what, that's weak. Me personally, I find non-communicative people to be disgusting. I've said it before, but they just turn my stomach. You have unless you have some type of disability where you can't communicate, but just being non-communicative, I really don't see your purpose for even being here. In all honesty, you know. But the thing about it is that we are utilizing the thought, which is our highest essence, our highest element. Thought itself is an element, and that's the highest element in the universe. It's the fastest thing in the universe. It's faster than sound. It's faster than light. Thought, you know, and you utilize the thought to disseminate your power throughout the world, which is a world is just it's just the world is belief, and you find truthful thought to dissolve the world. So like when you hear me sometimes in lectures, if you ever look at some of my lectures online, you'll hear me say like, I'm going to destroy you, or my goal is to destroy you. Really what I'm trying to do is destroy your world, because the world is a collection of beliefs that you gave weight to, that then solidified, but they're beliefs, they're not truth. The world is not built upon truth. It's built upon beliefs. So as you come into your truth, what happens is that the world dissolves. So when you hear things in different scriptures and writings where it talks about the end of the world, it's speaking about the end of belief, the end of standing on something that you believe is solid and real because multiple people believe in it. So now you're standing, or you're sitting rather, within the seat of your own throne, which is the seat of your own truth. And just to be even doubly clear on the value and the power of that throne, remember it was Lucifer who had made the statement, you know, um, about ascending above the throne. And you read that in Isaiah 14, 13, 14, 14, where it's like you were determined to climb up. You wanted to set your throne. You said, I'll set my throne above the stars. And in fact, when you translate those words, if you read like a regular King James, it says, you said you would set your throne above the stars. But the actual translation is, you thought I'll go up into heaven and set my throne above the Elohim stars. So this was a thought that Lucifer, that's the thought was more powerful than him even saying it. Then he said, and I'll sit on the mountain far away in the north where the Elohim assemble. Again, another reference that there's more than one God. Like he's talking about, I'm gonna sit up in the mountain of Zaphoth. That was the mountain where all of the Elohim used to sit when they would come to the planet and have their conferences, when they would bring their ships down, or however they traveled down here, and they would go to the mountain of Zaphoth. But they just said in the King James, they said the mountain in the north, and sit among the council of the gods, or the council of the Elohim, which would be a more correct translation. But the point I'm saying is that he said, or thought, not, I want to ascend above you. I want to put my throne above your stars, which is a huge difference. So I want to put the seat of my power above your stars, where my focus and my nucleus is. But again, you can't have that sort of experience as long as you still have these interrupting thoughts, or these kind of lazy sort of people around you, slothful sort of people around you, lying people around you, clowns, bums, whatever you want to call it, whether that be in the physical, whether that be in the mental, because again, your real truth has to dissolve the reality, or the fact that the belief reality of your world. And if truth, this is not how I'm supposed to be, this is not how this other person is supposed to be, then that is supposed to extend out from your throne and scatter them away. And if you find they're not scattering, it's because you're not on your throne.
Got it. Got it. Give thanks. Do we have any other? Welcome to those in the room. We've had the room kind of moved back and forth a little bit. So if anybody wants to share any thoughts, add to the build, feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring you on up and you can, say your piece. C2 or Ninti, if you have something, give thanks for joining and listening. Iris, Raheem, Maria, Sham, Cruz, Utu, Sequoia, the floor is open. Just give me a signal and I'll bring you right on up. And while we're waiting, I'll just like reset a little bit. So, the title is called Power and Rising Above. And, the anchor was a piece of our affirmation that we read every Sabbath here in Anu. And it is, we affirm the divine authority, our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. And so we, the conversation and the build has, you know, moved through talking about like how we master over those our lower nature, and how we scrub that out of us. Chief likened it to like because we have those things in us, and the landing strip is still active, and those lower nature things recognize that landing strip, and it's like, oh, there's still room for me. So knowing when to remove those thoughts and pieces of ourselves so that we can ascend to something higher. So give thanks. Raheem has joined the stage, Brother Raheem. So I will open. The floor is yours.
Peace to all. I'd like to say, how are you guys doing first of all? And um, when it comes to like power and rising above, it kind of made me think about the basketball game that I had at semifinals this week. Because we when cities we ended up losing, and it was a game that we shouldn't have lost. And within myself, I knew that I didn't prepare myself prior to the game properly, and I came in not only underestimating my opponent, but just not at my full capability because of maybe not working hard enough to practice before, or not eating well, or not just having my head in the game, right? And when you guys were speaking about kicking the bums out, it made me think about like negative thoughts or like procrastination, because I see that as like a bum thought in my head that I usually tend to have. And it not kind of, it always does hold you back, and it doesn't allow you to sit on that throne. Because we for the team that we versed, we were more athletic. We were definitely we were more disciplined. Definitely, we were also more experienced. We're just better than them in a more general sense. But um they stayed true to what it was that they were that they held as their potential and stuff like that. So they're executing their plays, they were playing their defense, right? They controlled the tempo. And instead of us as a team, using that power that we knew we had over them, we allowed them to take that and basically control the whole game, right? And it kind of makes me think of like what Chief was saying, not um like kicking that thought out your head, because I got into early foul trouble, right? And I tend to, when I get into early foul trouble, I tend to start beating myself up, right? And then it starts to get worse and worse, instead of just saying, like, the game's not over yet. You can still win this, and you can still get to that throne or that finals game and execute the plan. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback off of that because you just used the sports reference. So I'm gonna walk down that street with you. Even in the sense of like playing sports, one can lose power or gain power just from their essential will of saying, you know what, either you feed into what somebody else is saying about another team, you feed into what somebody else is saying about another group, You feed into what somebody else is saying about, oh, this is just the way society is, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, you can feed into that and ultimately diminish your own power and just saying, you know what, we're just going to do the best that we can. We're just going to try not to lose instead of going out there and playing relaxed and, and playing your own game and then now making somebody else adjust to you. And even when in the sense when you said of getting in foul trouble, right? One gets in foul trouble when they're not moving their feet, they're playing lazy, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or being somebody can get into foul trouble in life when they're not reading, when they're not studying, when they're not actually trying to eradicate some of those bum mentalities that they have inside of themselves. They're going to get in foul trouble and they're going to make mistakes. And then they're going to let those mistakes all of a sudden start to take them over. And now you start playing timid. And now you're like, well, I don't know when to speak. I don't know when to move. I don't know when to jump to block a shot and now when to take a charge. I don't know when. Now you all in your head, and now all of a sudden you can't play free. You can't be open. You can't just start to move and sit on one's throne, as opposed to now you just sitting there and like, what should I do? Now you're just living in fear, all right? And now you're living even standing on that belief, but standing on truth, and saying, you know what? I got myself in here. I'm gonna get myself out of here because I already know that whatever it is, I, I'm good. I'm good. And even if, you might take one on the chin, you might get punched in the face, you might get back down a couple times. You respect your opponent, but it's like chess now. Now watch my move. All right. That was a good move you just had. Now watch them come right back at you. And but that's just understanding your own power.
Mhm. I am not necessarily the sports person, but I do want to acknowledge your comment, Brother Raheem, and I think it reminds me of a different a segment that Chief did where he was commenting on The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and like specifically the part of like you to foreseeing a victory is internal preparation. So like when you think of you how your team lost the game in the end, but you knew that you were more talented, right? And the other team maybe not as more talented, but there was something internal that was happening, maybe like with that team where they were like, we're going to do this. And it's the same thing when we think about like mastering like over the stage, the lower stages. It's also like, or maybe not even the mastering, I think more so talking about pulling on what Aki Hamza said earlier, like thinking about what's best for the community or the group, right? And not just the individual. And that could even go to like another part of the art of war, like when you maneuver with an army, like that's the smart thing to do, like so you're thinking about the collective. But just moving with a multitude, like it's all of us and each of us individually have all this talent, that's where things can be a bit disastrous. So we have to start, that's where we have to kind of think about that harmony part and the unity. Like, so I know what I'm harmonizing with, like how I've gotten myself together inside. So how does that fit within the group so that we can go out here and be victorious? Like that internal preparation for the group has to happen. And I think that that's where it does kind of circle back to that lower stages. Like, am I, and I'm like, I'm going to even like just kind of speak to self here. Like, am I being self-centered, or how do I move that? Because that focus on self doesn't help the group. It only kind of continues to pull on like that bum nature. So yeah, give thanks.
And I also just wanted to add too, it made me think of even that saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it um and it's like no day. Sometimes when one, even with like going back to what brother said, was like we were a better team, but we lost. Well, sometimes when one just takes a day off, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna relax. Somebody's hungry. And it even makes me think of when the great Amos Wilson would say, sometimes some people think that they're going to all of a sudden be pulled up out of their state from a lecture on a Saturday or a Sunday, a 2 hour lecture, when your opposition is working overtime and you in a school for 8, 9 hours a day, learning what somebody else is telling you to learn. Then you think that you're just going to now escape that. from reading one book or a couple books or coming to a couple lectures or whatever the case may be, and now all of a sudden it's just gone. Your opposition doesn't take days off. Why are you taking days off? Right? Somebody is always coming and wanting that throne. Somebody's always going to challenge. Nobody should be satisfied with just being at the bottom if it's in you. But now, all you doing is saying, you know what? Then I know that they're gonna come for me. So now let me just be ready. And a day in and day out basis, I'm gonna keep working towards whatever it is that I need to be working on in order to now stay on my throne because somebody's coming to dethrone you. So yeah, I just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, I was going to
Thank
say too,
you.
when you were speaking about like even the attributes that you were giving yourself and your team, you were saying, we're we're more athletic and we're more disciplined, and we're just a better team than they are. But at the same time, they still came from behind and won. So maybe you were that the last time you checked, and maybe they were, you know, their teamwork wasn't on point, or maybe the last time they played, what they showed wasn't their best selves. So it goes back to what Akizaka just said, respecting, like just respect, self-respect and respecting your opponent. Self-respect has a lot to do with maintaining your standards, and respecting your opponent means you gotta make sure you're aware of your competition and what they're capable of, and not really assume that they're just gonna stay at the last level that you saw them at. And I'm just using the example that you brought up, Akira, but it's the same with that internal bump. That internal bump can get emboldened when we keep giving into them. You feed into them and you keep strengthening them when you keep um, giving them a pass or indulging them or saying, well, maybe just this one time. And you're thinking that they're not going to get stronger off of that, maybe just this one time, as opposed to just eradicating them once and for all. There are lots of examples in like a lot of shows that I've even watched where there's a villain that you would think would not be a threat ever. Once they show up, they're like an easy win or a setup to the main issue. But nah, they're still an issue and they can get stronger. You know, so yeah, your enemies can get stronger just as much or just as well as you can get stronger. It's not that you have all the time in the world and everything else is just waiting for you to get up off your ass. It's like no, you have bums internally and you have bums externally pulling you down. Meanwhile, others are working hard and running circles around you. You think you're on the same lap, but they're like 3 laps ahead of you while you're running with your eyes closed.
Good, thanks, Master Menelec. Welcome, Iris. The floor is yours to share and build. Mm, we may have lost her. Maybe I've put the. Oh, okay.
Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry.
All right, all right.
I pressed the wrong button. Peace to everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to share that to listen to all of you over the last weeks helped me so much also to how I react to different energies. Like when I'm with my friends, I'm really all calm and like friendly and this is it's the right space for me. But when I'm at work, I think I'm a metal person. I love metal. I love working with metal. And when I see at work that the people don't do their job, then I was always getting like inside. It was like not aggressive, but I was feeling this is not right, because you get paid for what you do. And but over the last weeks, listening to all of you, every single one of you, this it helps me to find a lot out about me, about how I get in balance, especially the emotional part in my life. And I just wanted to say thanks.
Give thanks. You are very welcome. Give thanks. And thank you for listening and joining us on all of our outlets and channels. Um, and willfully, it's helpful enough for you and you're spreading the word. So give thanks to you as well. So I thank every last one of you for joining, all my Anu family, and those of you who are visitors, the ones who are still here, as well as those who kind of dipped out. But give thanks for joining and building and talking about like this affirmation and willfully, it is first day and we can move with this, going forward. Like we use this first day to like start our six until we get to the next Sabbath. Um, so give thanks to everyone again for building Chief Yuya, Ima Precious, Dr. Arlene, Naya, Akizak, Master Menelek, Hamza, Brother Rahim, and Iris. And we're going to close it down. And so stay tuned for next Strong. We'll be here same time, same place. In the meantime, throughout the Strong, you can find us on our website at anulifeglobal.org. There is the new blog post that was posted and went live at 7 a.m. today, talking about investing in womanhood. Some of the things that were mentioned today are, they're clear in there as well. You can rewatch any of the Shema videos and recordings and lives from that. They're always very good and they're getting better and better. So give thanks. And so I'm going to close down the room. As everyone leaves out, I'll close us out with a sound libation and peace.
Peace.
Peace. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Hey, anybody want to quote Chief saying Ramadan was over? Or no?
Peace.
Peace, everyone.